session, mostly because it gives us a safety net for note-taking, so we miss nothing.
Okay, well, we'll get started just to be mindful of folks' time that showed up here today. So, good morning, buenos dias a todos. I wanted to acknowledge and thank the members of the community that have joined us to collaborate on an economic development strategy that's going to work for all of us here in Tucson. The community's time and input on this issue is highly valued, and we hope that you will continue with us on this journey, that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and this is a beginning, of this dialogue and engaging with our community in a different way. I really want to thank, Mayor Romero and the council, the staff from Economic Initiatives Department, you, Punam, staff at my office for helping organize these meetings. A while back at our city council, when we were having these discussions around the Central Business District back in October, it was stated that it was important that we establish a norm of having community dialogues on Tucson's economic development strategy, because we wanted to make sure that neighborhoods adjacent to Central Business District acknowledge that they're stakeholders in this decision-making process. And I believe that it's critically important that we target resources towards communities that have suffered from neglect and disinvestment from the city. But we also have to acknowledge that with new investment, comes concerns about commercial and residential displacement. I think that during this community engagement process, you, the community, the folks that have shown up here today, and which will continue to outreach to, will tell us their priorities, and in doing so, help us identify new ideas and approaches to the Central Business District, and tools like the GPLET that reflect the vision that we all want to see here in Tucson and for the years to come. So with that, I look forward to hearing your concerns, your ideas, your innovations, and thank you so much for being here today.
Councilmember Santa Cruz, thank you for your service, for your leadership, and for your absolute insistence that community be a part of informing the decisions that you make. So thank you. Good morning, everybody. My first name is Punam, and I just want to stop and give you permission to pronounce it any way it comes out, because I know it's me. So it's P-U-N-A-M. And I have the honor of being engaged by the city to facilitate this little component of a much larger community engagement strategy. So let me just begin by answering the why we're here. And that's really to extend what the councilwoman just said. The Central Business District was first adopted in 2012, and it was renewed in September by the mayor and the council for an additional 10 years. This spring, we're contemplating a February-March timeframe. The mayor and council will determine the future of that Central Business District, its potential expansion, and if they decide to expand it, its future boundaries. And based on that, they will then determine how best to use the GPLET as a tool and a process to accomplish what the community wants and envisions and desires for that CBD. Following the council's renewal of the CBD in September, they made a really clear decision to undertake an energetic outreach effort to engage the community in provision of input. They want to hear from you, and that's what brings us here together today. So that's the why. Now let me address the how we hope to accomplish their mission of maximum community engagement throughout the process. First, we've got 7 community engagement sessions. Today is the second of the 7. The first one was 2 days ago. The last one is scheduled for January 23rd. A key component of every one of the 7 community convenings will be completion of a 9-question survey. This survey is critical in provision of input that the mayor and the council are looking for. So beyond the community sessions, that survey will also be available by the middle of this week. That survey will be available on the city's website, excuse me, in both English and Spanish. In addition, paper copies for those who find technology to be a barrier. Paper copies can be will be made available through all of the ward offices. And at some point, that survey will be published in the newspaper with a warm invitation for as many people to fill it out as we can. The goal here is simple. It's to encourage as many residents as we can to complete the survey so the council has the benefit of hearing from as many as possible. And that's where we can really use all of your help. Between now and the end of this month, please tell your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues to complete the survey through whichever channel is most convenient, through the website, paper surveys, newspaper, doesn't matter how, it's hearing voice that matters. So in addition, tomorrow, because you're attending today, maybe Monday, you will receive an email from the city that will give you an additional opportunity to share additional comments and questions. Often when we have a conversation, we reflect on it and we have additional thoughts that emerge later. We want to capture those too. So that email from the city will give you an opportunity to share any additional comments or thoughts that you have. That email will also allow you to receive updates as we go through the entire process. So as the councilwoman encouraged, please join through the entire journey by staying close to the process. Finally, on the website, the city is also creating a master comments and questions document. And that's what we were just referring to a moment ago. The thinking here is that curiosity expressed by one can benefit all. And so any questions that emerge today, I encourage you to use the chat. Any questions, we may not get to them all today because we've sort of got an agenda that we've got to get through, but any of those questions will be summarized and then reflected back to the entire community to see on the city's website. All of that then, by the end of the month, the mayor and the council will review the results from all 7 of the community convenings. They'll get all of the survey results. They'll get all of the comments and questions received through the website, and they'll get the results of some significant academic research that they've commissioned. You'll hear a bit about that in a second. And they'll use all of that information to inform their discussion about any potential modification of CBD boundaries and the GPLET process. Based on their discussion and whatever consensus emerges from that discussion, by the end of February, the thought is that then staff would prepare a modified boundary map and a modified set of recommendations for a GPLET application and process. Ultimately, the hope is that sometime in March, the Marin Council can actually consider adoption of proposed changes. So that's the arc of activity. So we know the why, that's the how. So hopefully I've made those pretty clear. So for today, for 90 minutes today, we've got sort of 3 objectives. One, it feels important when we're having a community conversation to be sort of level setting a shared understanding of what we're talking about. So we're going to do a little level setting by providing you some information on the CBD and the GPLET. There's going to be a couple of short activities to discover what you want. And what I mean by that is, what is your vision for the community's future and for whatever challenges you believe we've got to manage and address in order to achieve that vision that you have. And third, we want to focus on the CBD and the GPLET, capture your thoughts, your perspectives, your desires, and your priorities and your fears and concerns by completing that 9-question survey together. We're going to do that together. So hopefully that explains what was coming up for the next 90 minutes. A couple of little agreements that I'm going to ask for, kind of a pinky promise through Zoom. One, express yourself, and we encourage you to do so with vigor and brevity because we only have 90 minutes. 2, because Zoom is funky, if you're not speaking, if you could just keep us on mute so that we don't have the sort of distraction of background noise. And third, the chat function is being very carefully monitored and everything in there is going to be captured. So any questions you've got, whatever you have, if we can get to them today, we will, but we've got an agenda to get through and that's got to be the higher priority. So any questions that are there by the middle of the week when that website is fully up and operational, what you'll begin to see are your questions answered again, so that your curiosity can benefit all Tucsonians. So that's it. There's one extra feature that I think is quite special and very innovative that you as a community have undertaken. And that is a unique feature of this community engagement effort. There are 3 individuals that we're referring to that we brought in to the team that we're calling bridge builders. And their role is to do simply that, to build bridges of engagement throughout the entire community engagement process. All 3 are rooted in the community. They're longtime residents, and they're very well versed in the topics that we're discussing, which makes them very uniquely qualified to help engage diverse and widespread participation through the entire community engagement process. They will also assist with the preparation of recommendations, ultimately to the mayor and the council. And I'd like each of them to just quickly say hello and introduce themselves. So if we could do that, Frankie, I think I saw you there.
I'm here. Good morning, everyone. My name is Francisca Villegas. I am a bridge builder. I was approached to make recommendations, so I'm here to listen and to, I'm eager to learn about the needs of the small businesses, and how the extension of the CBD is going to benefit the small businesses. I'll be popping in and asking questions to make sure I get all the information I need to make the right recommendations at the end of the meetings.
Terrific, thank you. Who wants to go next? Corky, Shay, either one?
I'll go next. Hi, this is Corky Poster. I'm an architect and planner with Poster Merton McDonald. I'm pleased and honored to be kind of an independent voice in the process that's going on. I know a lot of you, but just for those who don't know me, I've been practicing in community architecture and planning for 47 years in Tucson. I've done neighborhood planning everywhere from the Elvira neighborhood on the far south side to the Flowing Wells neighborhood on the north side, and most of the neighborhoods in between. I also have spent a career in affordable housing, and I've done, on last count, about 4,600 units of affordable housing. And so I'm here to listen carefully and also to be able to provide some information on some of those topics. So thank you.
Thank you, Corky. Shay.
Hi, my name is Shreya Jimenez. I also go by Shay because that's hard to say also. I've been in Tucson my whole life and my family for almost 5 generations. We come from historically Aloyo, which was largely destroyed during the urban renewal movements. I also, so I think I bring a unique perspective in that way because I, understand a lot of the history. But I also have been practicing architecture with Corky for the past almost 9 years with him, and then altogether maybe 10 years between other work. And then, yeah, I'm just happy to be here.
You say how many generations of your family tree are rooted in Tucson?
Yeah, I said that 5. It's been 5. And then I live in the South Side now, and but I also own a home in Barrio Blue Moon, so I'm interested in kind of definitely barrio preservation.
Beautiful, thank you. So those are your bridge builders. So now let's get into today's agenda. I mentioned at the beginning that as we embark collectively as a community of over 500,000 to have a discussion, it feels quite important for us to have a shared understanding of what it is that we're discussing. So the next agenda item, you've got 2 people who will walk us through some background on the Central Business District, what it is, what's been happening there up until this point. So to do that, we're going to hear from Barbara Coffey, who's your Director of Economic Initiatives, and Corin Manning, who's Planning Administrator at Planning and Development Services. And again, as they're speaking, if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat. If we can answer them in the chat today, we will. Otherwise, you'll see them again in that community questions and answers. So take it.
Thank you very much, Poonam, and again, everyone, for being here today. It is an important community conversation, so I appreciate your participation on a Saturday morning. So let's talk about the Central Business District. The map you see in front of you shows our existing Central Business District, and it was created back in 2012 and has a unique shape. It might look a little different than some of our neighbors in the Phoenix Valley, where you have a more tight rectangle. Ours was created early on, and statutes now have some very specific ways that it can be configured. But one thing is, it cannot be more than 2.5% of the total land area of the city. So it does have some geographic constraints, but it was an area that has been surveyed and met the criteria of the requirements of state statute. One thing about this process, as we talk about the future of our Central Business District and and where we're headed, whether we expand or how we utilize the tools that the Central Business District enables us. One thing I wanted you to know that Mayor and Council has asked us during the reconsideration of this process and the Central Business District and GPLET tool is that we have an additional research and analysis track going on as well. That is being led by Dr. Gary Pivo. Mayor and Council asked us to look at the impacts of the GPLET projects that we have completed since 2012, or at least approved since 2012, to look at the impacts of those projects and understand those better and use that information to inform, along with the feedback that we gain through this process, where we're headed, any recommendations then to Mayor and Council utilizing both those pieces of information. Dr. Gary Pivo is a researcher at the University of Arizona in the College of Architecture Planning and Landscape Architecture. So just wanted you to make that connection and know that we've got sort of two tracks going on. So again, the Central Business District by state statute does allow the city to abate property tax for up to 8 years if property is located within those boundaries that you saw on the map prior. Again, that tool is called the Government Property Lease Excise Tax, or GPLET as we like to call it. And again, allows us to facilitate development or redevelopment of real property in that area. And the trigger is that the property value must increase by 100% in its assessed valuation as a result of the development that occurs in order to be eligible for the GPLET program. So we've had 23 projects since 2013. Again, to give you a sense of value, of total value, those projects before the GPLET incentive and before their corresponding development worth about 40 million on the tax rolls. Estimated post GPLET value totals when we ask those projects to come through with an economic impact analysis and look at what they're proposing to develop, we get this figure again totaling over $220 million in value after the development occurs on those sites. And then when we looked last year to do a recap and update for the Mayor and Council, we looked as best we could at 2020 assessed value totals on the tax rolls. And of those 23 projects, not including the 6 that have not yet been constructed, so they're not yet quite assessed, of those that were constructed, we've already seen increases up to 90 million plus. So all but 5 of the 23 GPLET projects have received certificate of occupancy. So that's about 4 under construction. All but 3 have been developed by local entities. So again, a majority of these projects are developed by local firms and developers. All but 1, and just to make sure you understand the outlier on our 2020 assessed value research shows that they're just at 93% of their increase, not quite at the 100% increase, but getting there. So again, if you look at the program as a whole, what is it achieved? Well, those projects situated in the Central Business District, 8 of those converted parking lot properties, 5 of those activated some vacant buildings, 5 were associated with rehabilitating or preserving historic structure. 1 of those was developed on a vacant lot. And just to be clear, none of the projects were involved in replacing any single family residents. So here's an example of some, just wanted to give you some pictures that tell 1,000 words and quickly share a few stories on the development. This was a parking lot before it became the Trinity Office Project. And I believe Randy is in the room today too. This project is a sustainable office environment that just opened up last year and is now leasing. So is one example. Here's one that you may recognize, a former Motel 6 property that was certainly in decline and deteriorating. Again, renovated to a new boutique hotel that opened in the middle of a pandemic in July last summer. So the Tucson Hotel has now transformed that site in which it sits. This is the site that you've been around as long as Corky has, it's possible. This was about 1952 construction. I believe the First Baptist Church used this as a school building for a while, and it sat vacant and in decline for some time later on, and then became the headquarters for the Mr. Car Wash company. And so again, a great opportunity to see a historic building renovated in the heart of downtown. Then you notice our iconic structure in downtown Tucson, the tallest building sitting there is One South Church, but the corner, at the hard corner there, right below, is the property that recently you've seen developed into what is now the Rendezvous Urban Flats. So 100 residential units have come to life there, sitting next to the tall office building, and provides that 24/7 community, which helps our small businesses in the surrounding area as they begin to enjoy evening and nighttime activities and create that, that round-the-clock demographic profile that helps us be sustainable. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my partner in Planning and Development Services so that she can share a little bit more about the tools that have helped us as we've moved forward with transforming opportunities in the Central Business District. Corin? Great, we can see your slides. Make sure you're unmuted.
Corin, we can't hear you if you are speaking. It just shows you as muted. The magic of Zoom. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
We can indeed.
Okay.
We are feeling good about that.
Loop. My Zoom controls have all frozen, but I understand you can see my screen.
We can. You're good to go.
Okay, great. Thank you for your patience. Sorry about that. I'm Corin Manning, Planning Administrator with the Department of Planning and Development Services. And I just want to share a little bit about some of the other tools that we use as a city to support sustainable infill development along with the GPLET and the Central Business District designation that Barbara just spoke about. So the Central Business District and the GPLET are a really important financial tool to spur infill development, but it's really designed to work hand in hand with other investments and tools that we use as a city. So one of those is where we invest in transportation and infrastructure. And our city made a really pivotal decision decades past when we decided to put in a streetcar and provide more transit in the downtown area. This came after decades of advocacy by a lot of community members who wanted to see more transit as a community and to shift from a more auto-oriented community to a transit-oriented environment. So as a result of that investment that was made, community members and elected officials and local leaders put in place other tools to make sure that with this transit investment, we can really foster a more transit-oriented and sustainable downtown. And really, when we say downtown, it's kind of downtown and beyond that we're referring to. So those other tools include the financial incentives that Barbara just mentioned, but also include other tools like the Rio Nuevo district. And then the zoning regulations, which actually control what can be built in downtown and in these areas. So all of these pieces are really designed to fit together and each kind of influence a different piece of the puzzle and influence different aspects of what we see being built downtown. So zoning regulations, one of the biggest tools there, although not the only tool, is the Infill Incentive District. Many of you might be familiar with the IID, and because it is used by so many of the projects that are developed in the Central Business District using the GPLET, I just want to give a brief overview of the Infill Incentive District. This is an optional zoning overlay. It covers much of the downtown area. I'll show you a map in just a minute. And property owners within the Infill Incentive District can choose to develop using this option in order to develop more urban style development. This is designed to encourage more pedestrian and transit friendly development. So development like you see in this photograph that's right along the streetcar that is at a density that really does support ridership on that streetcar and a more walkable downtown. And mixed use development that can include residential as well as commercial and office space. These projects must meet design standards. So there's been very specific design standards put in place to make sure that these projects are really fostering a more walkable and attractive downtown. And they also have to comply with historic preservation regulations. One of the major goals here is to preserve our historic assets as a city, and this includes a lot of beautiful historic buildings that we want to see restored alongside new development. This tool was established by Marin Council in 2010, so similar time frame as when the CBD was established, and there have been modifications made over time. As the needs of our community evolve, we've tweaked the IID just like we are now reevaluating the Central Business District and GPLEP tools to make sure that they keep up with our evolving needs as a community. So this is a map of the Infill Incentive District. Looks very similar to the Central Business District map. As you can see, it covers the downtown area and then also stretches along a few commercial corridors like Oracle, South 6th Avenue, the I-10 frontage. But what it doesn't include is residential neighborhoods. This very specifically is not meant to encourage redevelopment in any of our core residential neighborhoods. It's really for the downtown area and commercial areas where a mix of uses are appropriate. There's also a number of sub-districts that each have very distinct design guidelines. So the densities and types of building form that you would see in downtown is different than what this allows and encourages kind of on the outskirts of downtown. So what has the IID helped us achieve as a community? There's been over 40 projects approved since it was established, and these projects together have facilitated over 1,500 housing units, including affordable and senior housing, and over 500,000 square feet of new commercial space. That includes offices, retail, hotels. And one thing I want to point out is that in the IID, we have kind of what we call major projects, which are usually new construction, a lot of the kind of high profile projects people might be familiar with, but there's also a provision for what we call minor projects. These maybe don't get as much attention, but actually more than half of the projects that have utilized the Infill Incentive District option are these smaller scale minor projects. This is usually the type of project that supports adaptive reuse of an existing building and is geared towards our small businesses. So this has helped a lot of small businesses remain in the downtown area, expand their business, and grow in our community. Some examples are Sears Visuals, Sand Reckoner, Time Market, Presta Coffee, and a number of other businesses along 4th Avenue and Stone. Some of our more neighborhood scale commercial corridors have used this option. So a couple visuals. I want to also mention that each project we think has been a great contribution on their own to downtown and the IID area, but also we see that together these projects have helped create a new sense of place in parts of our downtown. So this is an example of the corner of Stone and Broadway, very prominent intersection in downtown. Just less than 10 years ago, one of the corners was surface parking, actually two. The corner that's just kind of out of frame was also surface parking. Another corner that you see on the left had kind of an outdated office building and then a one-story office that was not being highly used. So through the IID, we saw a number of projects on this corner. There's actually been new projects on all four corners. The two that you see here on the left is the Westerner and West Point Apartments. And this is a really great example of how a lot of our projects have been able to achieve so many different goals of the Infill Incentive District and our goals for downtown in general. So this project combined historic preservation with new construction. So that building that was getting a little rundown was in need of rehab. That was actually a building that has historic designation. That building was preserved, rehabbed, and turned into new office. And next door, the less utilized commercial space, that was turned into new affordable housing. So there's now 50 units of affordable housing on that site, right adjacent to the streetcar, so supports more use of our transit system. On the other corner is 1 West Broadway. That is a GPLET project that utilized the GPLET incentive. And you can see this is a mixed use project with medical office at the ground floor and then 40 units of housing above. Another example, Barbara mentioned this one, but I just wanted to show the other side of the building of Rendezvous, because this shows what we're able to do through the design review process of the Infill Incentive District, which is there are requirements for open space and for streetscape connections in downtown. So this project, we were actually able to preserve that mural that's so iconic, the mosaic mural. It got moved slightly, but now it's the centerpiece for a new courtyard and public space in downtown and anchors this pedestrian walkway that cuts through that site, providing greater connectivity in our downtown. Here's an example of those smaller scale projects I mentioned. This is Cirrus Visual on Stone, just north of downtown. It was an auto-oriented use, had been vacant for a few years. And then through the Infill Incentive District, this site was able to be adaptively reused. So this existing building was rehabbed and turned into new offices for a local business. So it allowed this local business to stay in the area and expand their footprint and expand the jobs that they provide in our community. So those are a couple examples of the different types of projects we see utilizing the Infill Incentive District. Again, the IID provides kind of the zoning regulations and envelope that shape what our projects look like. And then the GPLET is the financial tool that helps make these projects possible. So these tools, again, work together with a range of other tools and investments to shape the type of development that we see in our downtown area.
Great. Marin, thank you. Barbara, thank you. There's some very rich conversation happening in the chat. I want to ask all of you to just show up present here. We're going to ask you to do a little work, and I want you to look up, because a lot of the conversation is about the specifics. At some point, what is really valuable to the mayor and the council is to get a view that is the larger view of aspiration and desire out of the community. So here's the activity. I want you to open your chat. If you don't have your chat open, for those of you that are not Zooming all the time, down at the bottom, there's a little bubble that says chat. Just open that up. And I'm going to ask you to answer a very simple question. And I want to hear from everybody. So please write your one-word answer into the chat. Here is the question. Think about Tucson in 2030. We sit here today, it was January 9th, 2021. So look something about a decade out. So be thinking about that. And in one word, which adjective would you like to claim as a description of Tucson in 2030? What do you want to be true about our community a decade from now? What promise do you want to deliver and keep to generations yet to come? It's a vision question, right? What do you envision? What adjective will describe the community that you will love in 2030? And as we see some of the answers, you can all see what people are saying. Mixed use, affordable housed, inclusive. And we want to hear from everybody, so please, please answer. And there are 50 of us on the call, so that's about how many I'm looking for in terms of answers. There's a few that I'm going to call out just to understand a bit better what we mean. Natasha, if you don't mind, I see the word diversity. Can you just help us understand a bit more what you mean by that?
I see it as like a community that allows everyone to be here. So young and old, lots of mixed colors. I think that leads to affordability, because what I see a lot of what's happening as I live in Dunbar Spring is that people that can afford to be there are there, and as prices keep going up, that's locking certain people out. I think that we have to be careful about what we build in these areas, and we need to have preservation and preserve what's the buildings that are there already that give us a diverse history, and show I don't know, the eras and the time periods of what was before we came and what can be there. So I think that's a part of preservation. That's part of lots of things that allow.
So I'm hearing diversity on many dimensions: economic diversity, cultural diversity, historical diversity, all in all of the forms. So it's a capital diversity for you. Great, thank you. Shannon, I'm going to turn to you. I see the word equity in here a couple of times. You wrote it all in caps, which protocol in chat tells me you were screaming it. It really matters. So help us understand what you mean by that, please.
I didn't mean to do that. I accidentally hit caps lock, but but I do feel pretty strongly about it. So
share that, please.
Yeah, I think that it just comes down. I feel like that's what it comes down to, is that everyone should have access to, you know, a place to live that is affordable, that has open space, that is walkable. Especially, I mean, people that are lower income, it's more important that they have access to be close to where they live, that they have public transportation that is affordable or free to get them to where they're going. I mean, when we're just building along our transit lines for people who have lots of money, who don't need to use public transportation, it's obviously nice if everybody uses public transportation, but the people that were downtown in the hotels, restaurants, bars, those are the people that need to use public transportation, and they're being priced out of affordable living where they live.
So the input to the Maryland Council is, as you contemplate and plan, this for you is a really, really important consideration that should be woven into every decision they make, is to make sure that the benefits are derived and felt and experienced and accessible by everyone.
Yes.
Am I playing that back?
Yeah, that sounds good. Why does Tom want to keep direct messaging me? Please stop.
And thank you for that. So here is what you said. And so for those of you that haven't seen a word cloud, the frequency of expression makes the word bigger, right? And so just in a conversation right now, January 9th, 2021, with 51 people, this is the vision that we would offer to the Marin Council, to say, here are the things that are non-negotiable. These are things that really matter to us as residents. So I just wanted you to have that. Again, all of this is going to be shared ultimately back to the Maryland Council. So next question, same thing, one word in the chat, please. And it's a new question. So in a single word, what do you think is the biggest challenge that as a community we will face in achieving the amazing vision that you just articulated? What's going to be the barrier? What is it we need to manage and muddle through? What is it we'll need to solve for? What is the challenge that we're going to face? The biggest thing that will stand in the way between us and the vision that we see.
What's the biggest thing that will stand between us and the vision and this vision? Oh shoot, sorry, I'm not muted.
Yeah, what do you think is the biggest challenge we will face in achieving that amazing vision that you just articulated in the prior question? And thank you for self-correcting there, Shannon. Appreciate that too. Yeah, so I see some themes here. And so for those of you that said greed, let me just try to interpret based on some of what I just heard in the prior conversation, this is about having unequal or unjust benefit derived. Am I hearing that correctly? Some benefit, others get left behind. So am I capturing what you mean when you say greed or capitalism? That often when we get into conversations around economic development and community development, there are a short list of people who benefit and a lot of others who then don't get any promise kept. So Josephine, I'm going to just turn to you. I see egos. Tell me a little about what you mean there.
Good morning, buenos días. That we wouldn't allow self-interest to overpower. Sometimes it's within and not looking for the benefit of all.
Boy,
Ego.
Josephine, you used very few words and made a very powerful statement just then. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's see if we've got, do we have the word cloud ready?
It's coming.
It's coming. All right, let me turn to one more. Abriza, I'm going to turn to you. You've got the word planning as a challenge that we will face. Give us a little more about what you mean there.
Planning, I guess it kind of leans into what Josephina said, and I haven't talked to Josephina in a while, so hello. What I mean is planning. A lot of times, a lot of planning is done and it overlooks, or the people that are going to be directly impacted by a plan is basically contacted after the plan has been completely visualized and submitted to PDSD, and then they ask for the input of neighbors or businesses that are around them, as far as how, now does this affect you? What can we do to change our plan, rather than involving the community in the beginning?
Yeah, got it. Completely understand. And I will share with you that the entire intention of this community engagement process is to do that not that way that you just described, right? Is to start with, hey, residents, community members, broadly, what are your hopes, desires, priorities? And they're going to use that to then inform the thinking to develop a plan that then can be responded to, right? But it won't be a plan that you will not have seen. It'll be a plan that hopefully the broadest cross-section of the community can convey priorities as a basis for formation. Okay, thank you. Now let's go. The next thing now we're going to complete together. We're going to stroll through that 9-question survey, question by question. And again, we're hoping that many, many others out in the community will fill out this survey, the 9 questions. What they won't get the benefit of is doing it together with other residents and citizens, but here's how it's going to work. So we've got a test question, and this one you don't need to use the chat because the survey itself will allow you to answer directly. So if you could put up the test question just to see it, that's the question. You would select your answer. When you select an answer, your submit button gets red. That means you're ready to submit. And so please, let's do the test question. And then immediately we, as a group of 50, on January 9th, 2021, we're going to see exactly how we answered that question. And so in the case of the first one, we hope that the answer is yes. So let's see what the answer is. Okay, so that is really positive way to start. So now let's get to the substantive question. Here is your next question. How long have you lived here? Just to get a sense of who is in this discussion today. And here we go. So boy, there are some deep roots that are evident here. It's great. All right, thank you. Next question, please. Very simple. Do you live within the existing CBD? And once the majority of you have answered, then the answer can go up. So about 1 in 5 of you do, 7 in 10 of you do not, and a couple don't know. Okay, thank you. Next question, please. What has brought you, or what brings you to the CBD or to downtown Tucson? What is attractive? What is the invitation that you respond to? And take your time, because we won't close it until the majority of you have responded. Okay, there's some diversity here, isn't there? Government facilities. Almost 2/3 of you, followed very closely by 3 others. Visiting restaurants and bars, entertainment, museums, special events, murals, art, public space, walkable areas. Let's say to the bridge builders, do you see anything here that you want to probe a little further?
I'll wait a bit. Thanks.
Okay. Then let's go to the next question. The streetcar's influence on downtown Tucson from your perspective has been? If I tally up, normally I tally up very positive and somewhat positive. So that's over 50%, 57%. Neutral, and then there's a few of you that observed it's been somewhat negative. So I'm just gonna ask someone who answered somewhat negative. Could you, with vigor and brevity, just give us some insight into why you feel it is either somewhat negative or very negative? And if you don't want to, that's fine too.
I did say that. I just think that the planning to go down 4th Avenue was short-sighted because it impacts a lot of events and businesses in that area, that it could have just had a better route and maybe had further reach, because it just seems like it doesn't totally benefit the people really in the area. It seems like it was made more for U of A students.
Okay, thank you, thank you. For someone that answered either very positive or somewhat positive, what was the experience that you were thinking of as you responded that way? Will, were you going to say something?
Yes, as an older person, going downtown has made it a lot easier for my husband and I to move around using the streetcar.
Great, great, Margie, thank you. All right, then let's go to the next question, number 6. So as you're probably all well aware, your mayor and city council have identified affordable and workforce housing as a really high priority for them. And so the question for all of us as citizens is, how do you feel about that, about their declared priority? Wow, Councilwoman Santa Cruz, that is really good news. You are doing the people's work. And they've got your back on this one, clearly. All right, then that sets the table for the next question. In addition to affordable and workforce housing, what other types of investment do you believe should be a key priority for them as they contemplate the future? Oh, and Randy's made a good point. You can't see all the options, so just scroll down, because I think sometimes the last one gets cut off. So again, with the Marin Council are looking for direction from the community. And so the direction here is, in addition to workforce and affordable housing, here are the other priorities that we think you should really focus and concentrate on. Wow, we got tie for number one. And I'm glad you scrolled down, because clearly scrolling down was worth it for you. Safer streets, better connectivity, public and green spaces, followed very, very closely by renovation and reuse of existing buildings. And so oh, Corky, go ahead.
Yeah, Poonam, I wanted to, we've kind of gone by the affordable housing question, but I wanted to spend a little more discussion time drilling down on folks' comments and questions about affordable housing. I've done a bunch of it in my life, and I'd really be interested in spending a few more minutes hearing about the affordable housing question and what folks think. So
great.
Just unmute yourself and let's have a little more open conversation.
And can you pose a question that we can answer, just to frame our thinking?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. One of the real problems is that 98% of the affordable housing, new affordable housing currently being built in the country is through the low-income housing tax credit program. And for structural financial reasons, it's impossible to use a LIHTC, low-income housing tax credit, and a GPLET on the same project. And so the major tool for affordable housing is structurally impossible with the GPLET. And I'm wondering what folks think about that model and some other models for how we might be able to achieve what is clearly a high priority among almost everyone on the call.
It seems a very technical question. I know as one, I am ill-equipped to answer that, right?
Yeah.
And so I want us to come up,
That's technical.
It is very technical. So for Margie, who's enjoying the time to access downtown experiences, it's something that would be easier to respond to.
Can I, this is Raul, can I take a?
Please.
I didn't raise my hand, I'm sorry. Do you want people to raise their hands?
Go ahead, we hear
Okay,
you.
so, hi Corky, thank you for the question.
Yes.
You know, affordable housing isn't what I see in downtown Tucson. Honestly, I know there's different definitions based on, poverty levels and federal, levels that define it. But to me, it'd be like, people being able to pay their rent, that's reasonable, kind of maybe in the range of 600, maybe 800, depending on how many units there are that they're renting. But downtown to me is not affordable. I mean, it's, and quirky, I'm going to use your term, monoculture. I think it has, even though I know you've done a lot of work with senior housing, and maybe that's the diversity that I see. But beyond that, I'm being honest, and I respect you a lot, and but I'm just giving you feedback. So
great, thank you. Thanks, Raul.
If I may speak. Go ahead, Betty.
Oh, thank you, Josefina. I appreciate it. Just to piggyback on what Raul said, you know, there obviously anything being built that is not subsidized is not affordable. And we need to look at imposing what some type of zoning on the developers to have affordable housing in every development that they do. It has to be mixed income. That mixed use and mixed income are the two items that I think need to go together in the downtown area, because you know, it's unaffordable unless you have subsidy or subsidized housing. And we don't have enough subsidized housing, and we don't have the funding for subsidized housing. And it leaves a lot of people out because most people don't qualify for it. And so we have to make sure that we have a tool that will allow people to be able to afford where they live. So when you talk about affordable housing, we're not only talking about Section 8 housing or public housing or subsidized low-income housing, tax credit housing. We're talking about natural occurring affordable housing, and that has gone away. And so now we have to figure out a way to bring that back. And the city, years ago, they had a 10% of all development needed to be affordable. That has gone away, but we need more than 10% in every development.
So Betty, thank you. Raul, thank you. And I want to now, could you bring back up the question 7? Because affordable housing is one of the priorities. The intention of this question is to get from 500,000 citizens, residents, other priorities. That's the question, right? And so I want to just be mindful that to provide them the feedback that they're looking for. What they're asking here is, we're going to be working hard on affordable housing. What are the other priorities that you would like us to focus on? And so renovation and reuse of existing buildings, several of you said that. I'd like to hear from someone. Give us a little bit more about what you mean by that. What does that mean to you?
Well, for me, public space is important, public and green spaces. Yeah. But the key word is public. Yeah.
Got it. So that speaks to the discussion that we've already had a little bit of about just inclusion as a promise that is equally kept for everybody. Like everyone can access it, right?
Yes.
So someone answered with a strong view about renovation and reuse of existing buildings.
I do.
Go ahead, Abrisa. Give us a.
When I clicked that certain thing, I was looking at the renovation and reuse of existing buildings that are called plight buildings. Yep. Older structures, you know, from 30s, 40s, 50s, that they may condemn even though a family is still living there. The building might have been passed down from family member to family member to family member. In a lot of these areas, money needs to be spent to rehab these buildings. If this building was owned by some famous person in the past, it would be classified as historical. So I would think that renovation of existing affordable housing, rather than just selling it to a developer who's going to put in unaffordable housing.
Got it. So I just want to play back to make sure. So for you, when you express your strong priority around renovation and reuse of existing buildings, it is a twofer. It is a, let's fix what is needing our love that is dilapidated, and let's honor history.
And the families.
And the families, got it. Okay. Someone who had a strong view about safer streets and better connectivity, give us a little bit about why that matters as a priority to you, or what you meant by that.
This is Amy Hartman Gordon. Can I speak to that a little?
Hi, Amy. Yeah, of course, please.
Can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Well, I'm the director of the Presidio Museum, which is downtown in the Presidio Historic District. So I can speak a little bit to just that historic district area. You know, I think one of the things that we've been working on in that neighborhood with residents and the museum directors is to really look at how to make it more welcoming and feel more safe. It's got beautiful bones, beautiful historic buildings, and yet it's hard, you know, as we all know, it's sometimes hard to get to places. And then when you're there, it's the streets aren't very clean. There's construction signs everywhere. If you're coming in as somebody wanting to enjoy that area, you don't necessarily know how things connect. I'm thinking about the beautiful historic courthouse. It's hard to cross that Alameda Street to get from the courthouse to the downtown district. So just in keeping with the discussion of public and green spaces and art, I'd love to see more initiative across the downtown to look at how to make things connect better, be welcoming and safe as you're a pedestrian walking from a business to a restaurant to your office, whatever it is.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask us to go to the next question, which is question number 8. And now we're thinking about the geography. So what areas around downtown would you encourage the Marin Council to focus on for investment? Josephina, did you just hear a rooster in the background?
Yes.
That's fabulous. Say good morning to the rooster. Okay, so 7 and 10. There are sort of 4 areas that stand out, it sounds like. South 6th Avenue, 5 points, followed by Miracle Mile, the 05, and then split I-10 frontage in South Park Avenue, Millville. And so I'm watching in the chat, and so I want you not to get frustrated, right? So just to remind you what we're doing here. This is a process. Nothing is going to get decided today. No firm decisions are going to get made today. But to meet the intention and the desire of the Marin Council, what they're asking for is the largest number of voices that are possible to give them directional guidance, right? So this is intentionally at a higher level. And so nothing that's going to happen here, it is all to provide, it will all sort of populate a funnel of input. And so I hear a little frustration about it's not specific enough or things are being decided. And I'm here to tell you they're not, because these are not easy things. There aren't foregone conclusions. There isn't a single way to do it. As we know in our own lives, everything is a series of really complicated and nuanced trade-offs, right? And so as a community, they really want to hear what the priorities, the where, the what, so that they can weave it into their considerations. So thank you for this. Now let's go to the last question. And I want to have some hopefully good discussion on this one too. Number 9, what types, yes, here we go. So what types of community benefits should accompany GPLET assisted development projects in the CBD? What from your standpoint are the most important benefits to you?
If I could just interject, this is Miranda. I think that what I've observed from listening to this discussion and the Ward 3 meeting about CBD, people's quibble isn't with the broadness versus the specificity. I think it's more the feeling that we need to open things up and come up with innovative solutions, because these are problems that have been persistent, for a long time. We need new ways of approaching the tools that, we need new tools, basically. So I don't think it's the broadness or the specificity. I think it's the feeling that the same approaches seem to be utilized. We're going to keep getting the same results.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the hard work in all of this, right? Because if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. I think the curiosity is to what end, right? And then you can sort of develop tools that maximize success in getting to the desired results. And so I think the curiosity of the Marin Council are, what are those desired results? What is it that matters the most to the community, so that we can then backwards map and contemplate how best to utilize the tools to create those desired results. And so it's a little chicken and eggy, right? Just a challenge. So here's what we've got. Wow, okay, small and local business job creation matters immensely. So Frankie, I'm gonna chime in here.
Yes, so I think the key word is community benefits. And I would love to learn and hear from the participants, how does that look like? What kind of tools should be added to the GPLET project so we're protecting local and legacy businesses?
So is there a question that you want to pose to the group?
Yeah, well, actually, I would like to hear from the participants, how does that look like? What kind of tools should be included to protect the local businesses? Miranda was saying, like, we need to be innovative. So I would like, if the participants have any suggestions, anything that we need to protect the local businesses, right? We need to make sure that Tucson stays Tucson, but with outside investors. And I agree that the expansion of the business is a good idea, but we need to make sure that we are helping local businesses, legacy businesses. And I do want to hear from the participants if they have any suggestions. If we have business owners, how does that look like? If 82% agree that small and local businesses job creation is important. How does that look like?
Well, I think one thought is, it's not a Tucson GPLET, but it was one that the county issued, is the 75 East Broadway. And we learned that in the contract for that, CVS is going in on the ground floor, and it's right across from locally owned business, Johnny Gibson's. And so I think having in protections in these agreements of prioritizing local businesses on these that are going to lease these spaces, that's if we're going to give, if there's going to be this benefit to the developer or property manager, then I think that's safeguarding spaces at affordable rents for those businesses too, so they don't get shifted out, is one basic thing that should be included in all these agreements.
If I could add, in San Francisco, they have a legacy business program where if your business has been around for 30 plus years, or if you have some kind of cultural or architectural significance, you get special financial aid from the city and special financial considerations.
Yeah, that's a good program. I was going to say creating legacy business districts would be one. And also health impact assessment tool is another one. Having an analysis using the HIAs, which some cities are doing right now, to really analyze not just the impact to the business and the profitability, but to the impact to the neighborhood, and bringing everything into this analysis, into the health impact analysis.
Thank you, Betty. Frankie, I see Natasha's hand up. Can we turn to her?
This is great feedback, and I'm writing as fast as I can because I definitely want to make sure. So Natasha, go ahead.
So my feedback is that in the community benefits agreement, that there needs to be a prioritization for local businesses, and that partly comes from rental rates. I mean, if we are looking at what the rental rate is in that building and it's too high for what a local business could afford, then it's going to preclude a local business going in there. But I think that it has to be that for everything that's rented as offered up for commercial rental, that the first priority needs to be to local businesses and not to national businesses. And that allows for diversity and having the priority stay as local businesses.
Natasha, thank you. Raul, I think I saw your hand up next.
Yeah, thank you. To me, it would mean a revamping of how we think about the Central Business District, because I think the downtown is pretty much done, pretty much in the sense of, all the building spaces that to be. So I would move if we're going to keep it, which I'm not really an advocate for the Central Business District, because it has created some inequities in terms of using the language of blight to define areas that get help, and the areas that need help, we never get it. And the tools that we have, including the IID, really have never been applied to the wings of the area. The wings I call like the extensions going north and extensions going south. So it would basically mean just redefining the Central Business District and focus on those areas most in need. And to me, it's basically Ward 3, that's kind of to the north, and Ward 1 that includes, and it could include also Ward 5, which includes South. And I know they have to be connected, so that's the issue. So maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years, you'd have it in a focus area, kind of. So it'd be, let's say Ward 3, because that's real high in all the incident stats that I've seen in terms of need. And so maybe for 2 years it'd be there. And so anybody who wants to work on, do the Gplex would then be led in that direction. We'd have to work with the small businesses and really talk to them about applying for it, because as I understand it, it's like $5,000 just to apply, and all of it goes through the applied economics, which is about, the fee is like $5,000. So, some money would have to be available. I don't know, but CARES Act would be focused in certain areas and kind of, pair it with that. I understand too that the state of Arizona is working on some affordable housing. Obviously that's a big need too. And I don't know if they all going to dovetail or not, but to me, it'd just be a total revamping of the system to make it work.
Okay.
This is Tom. I my hand thing, I can't find it where, the chat and so on is. I don't know what I did to get rid of it. I'm Tom Warren. And if I could address something that Raul said on that question.
Then I'm just going to say to Trish and Amy, I know you're waiting, and we're going to get to you, but go ahead, Tom.
Okay, thank you. I agree with Raul completely. And back to some creative structure that Corky mentioned, there are only 3 or 4 sites left downtown. And that's really what there is in the core. And I was one that is strong for affordable housing and opportunity. And I think that if we could steer it in different where needs are there, where they're present, where we want to fulfill those. Marin Council wants to change it and make it better and make it more diverse and make it more affordable, that we then do what Raul suggested, or even do it simultaneously, going Ward 3, Ward 1, and so on, and put it together and develop an economic incentive structure with guidelines, strict guidelines, to create the environment that I think most people, at least on this call, are really looking for. Because in the downtown area, it's pretty well spoken for, and we're not going to tear down the buildings on Broadway, and we're not going to tear down the buildings, along Congress or any of that, nor do we want to. So I think that kind of creative solution, and what the technical question my friend Corky asked, I think that really makes a lot of sense. If Mayor and Council could, and that'll take a lot of time and a lot of effort, but I think that'll really change our community and make us more diverse and more opportunity for everybody.
Thank you, Tom. Trish, coming to you. Thanks for your patience.
Hi, thank you. I just, I wanted to just bring something up about these community benefits, especially as we talk about community benefit agreements and the enforceability of that. And there really is no accountability. The onus falls on the community to try to extract out those community benefits and hold developers accountable. There's also, we spoke with the folks from PCHIP and asked them, because they said, well, we could use these GPLETs. Let's start talking about the affordable housing issue that we have in Tucson. Right now in Tucson, we have over 16,000 families on the waiting list for housing support. And so they brought that up as maybe a way they could start addressing affordable housing issues. And so we said, is there a way to hold the developer accountable? If they come to you with a proposal and say, we want to build, a 10-story building, we're going to offer affordable housing at such and such rents. And we said, could you hold them to that? Or is there a mechanism where they could just renege on that deal and charge what they want? And they were very forthcoming with us, and I appreciated their honesty. They just said, we can't hold them to that. No, we don't have rent control. We don't have the ability to actually make them honor these agreements. And so I think we just need to kind of keep that in mind when we're talking about using public dollars to subsidize private development.
I think that's exactly the kind of input that your mayor and council are seeking. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was also, sorry, can I respond to you, Tricia?
Oh, of course, hey, go.
I was just gonna say that I also think that part of the problem in these discussions is that it is all very complex. So it's a very tangled web. And so I think what the part of the problem too with things like rent control, it's illegal at the state legislature. So some of our issues in even being able to control the private market, we have like so little control, right? There's so little we can do. And again, when it comes to affordability, some of these issues are like way beyond the scope of the CBD even. Like it's like high level stuff at the state legislature that, again, I think it's important to, if we could have a way that we could, map all these issues out and then, do the power mapping to figure out who is the right channel, to go to really influence X, Y, or Z decision. I think, again, part of the desire for a lot of people in this group who are already very, very well informed, again, a lot of the people here from the BNC, the Barrio Neighborhood Coalition, you all have done your homework, you've done your research, you all are very well informed. I think, again, at this point, it's a matter of really trying to figure out where, what issue needs to be directed to which channel, because the CBD is its own little, really just its own little area of focus in this huge, larger discussion of, affordable housing and how do we fund these projects, and again, what are the tools? But that's all I just wanted to add.
No, I think that's really helpful context. Thanks for that.
No, and I agree. It just falls back to using public funds to subsidize private development and private entities. And so even though we have those constraints of the legislature and all of these other pieces, we need to be mindful is, are we being responsible in investing public dollars in private industry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Amy, you've been so patient, thank you. Amy, do you have your hand up?
Hi there, can you hear me?
We can. Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead. Amy?
Yes. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
You there? Can you hear me?
Yes,
okay,
we can.
Sorry. I think I got muted and unmuted and muted again. Okay. Great conversation. I just wanted to throw out a couple more kind of examples. I think one of the pieces of this complex web is also just the culture of the city. And I want to say that I think it's really come a long way. So not trying to be too negative about it, but you know, the city is bureaucratic. And I think a lot of people would be willing to say that somehow, for some reason that none of us can quite put our finger on, you know, the county seems to be able to be a little more self-empowered. You know, staff members have the ability to make more decisions and do things, whereas the city, it's a very, you know, you have to work your way up the flagpole, and it can be difficult. And I look at Barbara Coffey and Mike Jakowski as people who are working really hard on that and trying to make improvements. And I hope we continue down that path. But for example, again, in the Presidio Historic District, you know, it took me over a year to get a sign. And, you know, I completely understand the issues related to wanting to have, you know, signs that respect history, and I'm all about that. But, you know, it was a very long process. And another example is my colleague across the street who owns La Cocina. You know, La Cocina is a historic gem in downtown. It's a over 100-year-old complex. And because it's over 100 years old, the owner of that complex has a very hard time fulfilling requirements of the city. And so, you know, she's been unable to get any kind of economic support or, you know, grants or things because, you know, because it's very hard to, you know, keep up the electrical and keep up all the things. So, you know, Tom Warren and Corky, they're much more experienced in this than I am, but, you know, it almost is a question of having two standards of like, you know, a standard for existing historic buildings or existing businesses that maybe go through a certain process where you have the city being really supportive and you know, giving city staffers a little more ability to make individual decisions and not have to go up the flagpole for everything. You know, whereas the big mega complexes, you know, those should have different standards. So that's my comment.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. And then James, you've had your hand up. And Raul, was your hand up from before or another? Is it up again? Just want to be. So let me go to James and I'll come to you. You've got James, are you there, sir?
Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to, number one, appreciate seemingly all the offices of the wards for opening up this kind of dialogue, especially in the times that we have, especially given what just transpired this week at the nation's capital and our capital in our state, and then everybody's participation today. So thankful for that, and the folks from the city who are also making that happen. And so I think it's this kind of outreach and engagement, these listening sessions, the feedbacks, the polls, and even the feedback about the polls and surveys, and really working with community to develop that vision of what we, you know, like what are our needs? As Trish mentioned, you know, there's lots of people, tens of thousands of people waiting for, you know, affordable housing. And so how do we use a tool like the GPLET, which we understand the business forces who put this into place in the state legislature, but it has the power to be wielded by the people, but it needs political will. And it starts with conversations like this to really start shaping that stuff. So how do we get union labor? How do we get community behind this? How do we get, engaging our school system? I'm a teacher. How do we get these kinds of voices, this kind of input? How do we shape a vision into a plan and then develop the political will and pressure to make sure these things happen? And yeah, we got to keep an eye on Phoenix. I don't think we can dismiss the importance of working to transform the legislature and its reactionary agenda. So I just wanted to say that and say that these things are possible. They take gritty conversations like this, but also building coalition and building power and finding unity in these things and finding our elected officials who are on our side and isolating the backwards ones who work against us. So thank you for your time.
Great, James. Thanks for making time to be here. Okay, we have got 3 minutes, and I want to be really respectful of the time that you've carved out to be here. So let me just quickly spend a second on what happens next, right? What happens next? So tomorrow, and I'm not sure it's tomorrow, I think it could be Monday, because at some point we need to give the team a day off. So I think it's going to be probably Monday, but you'll receive a follow-up email, right? The follow-up email is going to be, we'll simply say, thanks for being a part of, and here's an opportunity to express with no limitation in length, any comments, any questions, any additional thoughts that have emerged. So please, we encourage you, it's like a pretty please, submit the comments, because if we can funnel them all through a sort of a channel that we know is being maintained and monitored, then the mayor and the council will get the benefit of it all. So your curiosity, any questions, comments that you pose will again be captured and reflected in that community-wide questions and comments document. And so that email will be coming. It'll ask you for comments. Please provide them. Secondly, it will give you an opportunity to say, yes, I would like to stay in the minivan as we journey through the rest of this process. And so we encourage you, please, stay connected because it really matters. Super important. Please tell friends, neighbors. There's a few of us in every community that are deeply versed in these issues. The vast majority of us are just trying to run our lives, achieve our dreams, raise our kids, make a difference, but we do not have the depth of expertise. And that is why so few participate, because it's overwhelming if I'm just a person. I don't understand when you say GPLET, or it gets just beyond my level of expertise. So I really encourage all of you to tell your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues, strangers, people that live in your building on the same block. Please encourage them to sign up either for one of the remaining 5 sessions that we have, the community engagement sessions just like today, or just as importantly, to complete that survey. By Wednesday, that survey will be available and in a PDF format, so you can print it right off the website, print copies and share it up and down the block, up and down the building. It's available through ward offices in English and Spanish. The idea is to have as many participate as possible. Your help, advocacy, championing to do that will be immensely valuable. And we are right at 11:30. So I don't live in Tucson. I have fallen in love with Tucson because I've been there enough times to fall in love. It only takes one visit to fall in love, by the way. But I do work with communities and municipal leaders and governments to try to figure out what the secret sauce is to keep us moving to a greater good with a sense of compassion and inclusion. And there is no short answer. There is no easy way. There is no right way. And therefore, there's also no wrong way. And so what I've come to learn is that ultimately it's about the depth of the intention. If the intention is pure and people are then brave enough to say, I will challenge myself to align actions to my intentions. That is what your Marin City Council are doing. They have a deep intention to seek input, to get guidance, to include every voice in the community so that they can use all of that in addition to academic research as a way to form and inform their deliberations. So to you, Councilwoman Santa Cruz, to your peers and the mayor, I really salute you because I am not an insider. I've been really impressed with the purity of the intention because we all have a BS-ometer that rings immediately when we perceive intention to be impure. Can we all agree to that? Like, we're human beings, we're really good at that. And so I honor you for the purity of your intention, and I celebrate you for the courage of trying to figure out how to take steps to get there. And as a community, it's a powerful thing to engage voices. It is a powerful thing. And it's also been really awesome to witness in this 190-minute moment on January the 9th, with only 50 out of 500,000 of us in this conversation. I mean, I watched a lot of trust. I watched a lot of courage. I watched a lot of truth telling and good for you. And I also witnessed a lot of listening, which is really impressive. So I'm going to give you the last word. So we're going to go back to the chat. And when I say last word, I'm going to ask you to limit to one word, but here's the answer. Here's the question that I want you to answer. Every single one of us has got some superpower or some gift, some absolutely beautiful, brilliant gift that makes better whatever it is that we participate and contribute to. So I want you to just make a pledge in one word to your community to say, here is what I promise I will bring as a gift as we journey to whatever that beautiful future is going to look like in 2030. So what is your commitment? What are you going to bring to the journey? What is that superpower? Authenticity. Thank you. Justice. Beautiful. Listening. Great. Honesty. Perseverance. Conversation. Justice. Integrity. Innovation. Lane, what does that mean? Councilwoman, what does it translate, please?
Ganas.
Which translates?
Ganas.
Ganas, which translates?
Like, who wants to help me? I don't know.
Strength.
Courage.
Courage.
Will.
Strength.
Would it be kind of like cojones? Kind of like that, courage?
Yeah.
Creative ideas, an open heart, advocacy, honesty, showing up, participate, integrity, resilience, passion, and goodness. So here's the observation I will lead up to, and I feel like a super fortunate electron to bear witness. I'm just orbiting around the nucleus that is the heart of your community. And as long as those are the commitments that we wake up every morning and acquaint with that gorgeous face that looks up in the mirror and says, yep, today I'm going to give this gift to the world. There is nothing we can't solve. There are no trade-offs we can't negotiate. There's no way that we can fail, because when we choose to show it with our best and stay purely motivated, it is magic that is possible. And so I really honor you as a community for being brave enough to even embark on the journey, because most communities around the country, it's much easier to say, we know better, let's not listen. It is a very different proposition to say, let's get super vulnerable and let's do this thing the way that we all know that it needs to be done. So to all of you, I honor you. Thank you for the gift of allowing me to be an electron around your powerful and awesome nucleus. And I've kept you 4 minutes longer than we committed. So for the fact that you gutted 90 minutes on a Saturday to be here speaks volumes about your caring, depth of compassion, and your commitment to the community. And for that, I want to say thanks, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make Tucson as beautiful as a place as it is. So Dr. Council Member, I don't know, I still don't know the protocol. Do you want to give us, you want to send us out on the rest of our Saturday?
Oh my goodness, this has been really good. I want folks to know that, like, it's, you know, it's hard being in this position, and I always just try to remember that this isn't personal, right? That, like, the work that I'm just a community member like everybody else here, trying to navigate, you know, being on this side of governing, and that I really just, like, I've, you know, taken a lot of notes, and I know that this process is going to continue, but I'm just, like, looking forward to what we can create. We know what we don't want, but I want to vision what we do want. I have 4 kids, you know, I want to leave this space better than I had it growing up. So thank you all so much. You know, mucho amor, cariño. Please stay healthy out there.
Mwah. The end.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margie.
Thank you.
Thank you.